So hello friend, my name is C. Arun Tiwari, and in this video I'm going to talk about what are the important points you have to keep in mind if you are planning to sell ancestral property while you are a NRI. So I'm getting a lot of queries nowadays because lots of families are already shifted, their parents already shifted abroad, and now they want to all their asset in one place so that it is easier to manage. The biggest question is that what are the important points they should understand when selling this property like agricultural land or the house at their native place. So all these properties are slightly complicated, it's not very straightforward, and there are certain things you have to keep in mind when you are planning to sell those properties who belong or who have been bought or who has been following through your generations. So let me share some point. The first important point you have to consider is the cost. Now these properties who are coming through generations, nobody knows what is their worth, who bought it, how much they spend on buying this. But even for filing your income tax return or even to consider how much tax you have to pay, you need two important amounts. The first important amount is how much you are going to sell, which you know. And second important amount you should know what is the cost of that property. Now, while the cost may not be available, the easiest way you have to do is appoint a valuer and get a valuation report on that property. So it may be an agricultural land, it may be a house at native place. If you must take a valuation report because that valuation report can work as a cost in absent of any other evidence which can support the cost. Now, most of you might be aware that nowadays the long-term capital gain on property is sale price minus purchase price. There is no indexation benefit, right? So whether you purchase property now or 10 years back or like 80s generation, like 100 years back, there is no benefit. That you have to simply calculate this way. But if your cost is not available, then you have to get the valuation report, and only on the basis of valuation report we can calculate a capital gain tax, we can pay TDS, we can file your income tax return. So if you don't have any base for cost, you have to arrange this, and it's better that you arrange in starting instead of after selling, because what happen in most of case of sale, you have to pay like your buyer has to pay a TDS, because any money sent to an NRI, there has to be a TDS rate of 20% plus surcharge plus education cess. That 20% is depending on sale value. So the buyer has to understand first thing that you are an NRI, and second they have to pay a TDS. Now suppose if you are selling a property which worth 10 lakh rupees, so it makes sense to apply 10 crore rupees. So it makes sense for you to apply for lower TDS. So already I have spoken a lot of time about lower TDS. So if you're NRI selling any property, you should consider applying for lower TDS. But for lower TDS, you have to provide two documents to us. One, sale agreement or sale value, and second is a purchase value or purchase cost. So for application of lower TDS also, we need this valuation report. So first point, get valuation report as and when you are planning to sell your property, ancestral property in India, because most of cases the cost will not be available. Second things you have to keep in mind, if the property is a joint property, right, like your parents, their siblings are still together in that property, first the most important part before selling, if you get done a family settlement, the division of property should be very clear, because then only you can apply for lower TDS. If the property is like combined and some owner of that property is residents and some are non-residents, most of the cases the income tax department will not issue a lower TDS certificate. So they need clear cut ownership before they allow, because if the ownership is not very clear, how they can calculate that how much TDS as an NRI you have to pay and how much tax other people have to pay. So first important part, if you are selling a property which is a joint property, which is still not like by court order of court or something, it has not been segregated, better at least get done a family settlement, and clearly in the family settlement each person's share in the property should be mentioned, so it will be easier for us to apply for lower TDS. Third, already I answered in the previous video, but again I am repeating, if suppose your parents are in India, they are residents, let them handle this, let them sell it on their own name and then divide the proceeds, because it will be easier. they don't have to pay 20% TDS on that, right? And after selling, of course, they have to send money abroad, and on that they will pay 20% TDS. But that 20% they can claim filing return. But if they transfer first property on your name and then you are going to sell, it will be more cumbersome for you as an NRI, and you have to rush to India a lot of time just to sort out all these things. So always, if your parents are alive and the property is like ancestral, then better let them handle and ask them to only divide the proceeds. Last point, if the property, if your parents are non-residents, even in that case, it makes sense for your parents to come down and sell the property and transfer proceeds, then you coming. You are not going to save TDS on that, but at least you will reduce one step of unnecessary documentation, that is first transferring property on your name, then selling. So it is always easier that property should be transferred to your parents' name, and then they sell and then they divide this thing. So I told you the 4 important points, that if you're an NRI seller and you're looking to sell your property like agriculture property or property which is flowing through the generations, then 4 important things you have to keep in mind. First thing, get the valuation report done before you start the finding the buyer. Second important point, if you are if the property is joint property, get the settlement deed signed and if possible registered before you start hunting for buyer, because it will be easier with segregated property to sell also and to decide the taxation also, to apply for low TDS also. Third, if your parents are Indian and they are here in India, ask them to sell and then send the proceed instead of you are selling and sending the proceed. Always it will be easier, because on resident tax compliance is slightly lower than non-resident. And the fourth, if your parents are non-resident, still it is beneficial for them to come down. Of course, you can accompany them and then sell property on their name, then rather than transferring first property on your name and then you are coming and selling and doing all the compliances. This way you will save at least one level of unnecessary legal documentation. So friends, hope I answered this question. If you got more question about NRI property selling in India, please put your question in the comment section. Either me or my team will come back and answer that. Again, a request, don't put your personal details or what is the value of deal and everything in the comment section, because it's a public platform. Some scammer can target you, right? Or maybe somebody can get a advanced information that you are going to deal very soon in a lot of money, and you can be a target of some kind of unfortunate things. So always, if you have any personal details, send it through mail, or you can contact our client support team and they can arrange a meeting with me, and then you can ask all the questions. That's all in this video. If you like this video, please subscribe and share and send it to other NRI friends who can get the benefit out of this. That's all in this video. Thank you. Have a nice day.